All right, and with that, I think we can go ahead and get started. The only other thing I'd like to mention is that right now I am dropping a link into the chat. If at any point in the presentation you would like to go ahead and sign up for a free quote with StraightUp Solar, you can follow that link and get started. So my name is Riley Francis. I'm a marketing coordinator here with StraightUp Solar. I have a degree in environmental science and my North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners Associate certification. And I like working with StraightUp Solar because it's something that I can do to help people do something beneficial for their environment and their wallet. And Matt?
Yeah, thanks, Riley, and thank you to everybody for joining. So my name is Matt Farwig. I'm a project developer with StraightUp Solar, and I've been with the company just under 3 years. In about a month, I'll be right at 3 years. I have designed and developed 81 solar projects during my time with StraightUp Solar. And then you might see the name recognition. So this is the Farwig Open House. So it's actually not my system. We're also joined by my brother. He's the gentleman you can see, the third person besides Riley and I on your screen. And so he did buy a system through StraightUp Solar, and that's whose system we're featuring today here. So a little bit about StraightUp Solar. We were founded in 2006 by an orthopedic surgeon. So our founder, his name is Dr. Dan Glick. He went to school in Arkansas and saw, a lot of the strip mining taking place there and the damage it did to the environment, and said, hey, when I get out of school, get established, I'm going to start a solar company or install solar. So he became the first person in the state of Missouri to get certified as a solar installer, put the panels on his roof. His neighbors saw it and said, hey, I want the same thing. And that sparked the idea for the company. So in that time, we've done over 1,300 installations, both residential and commercial. We have won 12 Midwest Renewable Energy Association group buy programs. And basically what that is, it's where certain municipalities on the Missouri side, this year it's St. Louis County, St. Louis City, and St. Charles County. There's a group buy program where you get discounted pricing as well as a rebate. So we've won 12 of those in our tenure between Missouri and Illinois. We are part of the Amicus Solar Cooperative. So what that is, it's a network of regional solar installers roughly the same size as us. There's about 45 throughout the country. It's an invite-only organization, and basically we work together as a collective group on installation efficiencies as well as safety. So we've been able to lean on them very heavily during the COVID period we've been in, as far as, our crews no longer drive together to job sites. They don't share tools. We do as much work outside as possible as we can. And so we've been really able to get, a lot of good leadership from Amicus on that. We're also a certified B Corp. So that's basically an organization that they call it the 3 Ps, putting people and planet over profit. So, of course, as any business, we have to make a profit to remain in business. But the primary focus of the B Corp is to put people, so employees and our clients, and the planet over the importance of profit. We've got 75 plus employees as a company, and then roughly 25% of those are NABCEP certified. So NABCEP is basically the industry standard for solar installers. And then we were, within the last year roughly, certified as the first Tesla Powerwall installer in the St. Louis area, and also a panel manufacturer called REC. We are a premium installer for them as well, and we'll go into some of those details here in a little bit. And with all of our installations on the residential side, we do include a 10-year workmanship warranty. So that's going to basically cover the wiring, the conduit, the drilling into your roof. Essentially anything that we touch, we'll cover for a period of 10 years. And the other, warranty that we include is a production warranty. And basically what that says is that however much power we state the system will produce, we guarantee that it will produce at least 85% of that amount of power each year for the first 10 years. And Dane, our founder, is very big on that. He created that idea himself. He wants all of us employees thinking as owners. And 2, we know it's a very big investment for our clients, and we want them to know that, what we're saying the solar system will do, that we're actually going to contractually back that up. All right, and our vision as a company is to care for others by creating a path for clean energy and a sustainable economy that honors our values and everyone's healthy shared future. Again, a little bit more details on B Corp. They audit us, roughly every, I think it's every 3 years to make sure that we are doing right by people and planet. So, our company offers healthcare, retirement, which in the solar industry is fairly uncommon. And then as far as the environment, we have a new office at our headquarters in Maryland Heights. We just installed a 100 kW size system there that's going to cover about 90% of our annual electrical use. And they look at things as far down as, single stream recycling, down to what kind of soap we use in the restroom. So some common companies that you may have heard of are Patagonia, Ben & Jerry's Ice Cream. They're part of the B Corp certification as well. And then we really live by what we call our clear values. So you can see them listed there. So it's community first, lead the solar tribe, educate, which is a big part of what we're doing here today, advocate, again, what part of what we're doing today, and then respect for the people on planet, and excellence in all we do. So today's agenda, we're going to go over Solar 101, basically how it works, and then what its environmental impacts are, and then your different options as far as how it's mounted, different types of equipment. We'll talk about batteries. Those are becoming very, very popular. The various incentives that are available both in Missouri and in Illinois, if anybody's joining us from Illinois. The awesome financing options that we have available. And then we'll go into some of the details on Mike's solar array. And then Mike's actually going to take us on a live stream of his solar array. So we'll get to see his panels, his meter, his inverter, all those details. And then we'll give you, some direction if you're interested in proposal or design, the steps to take to get that started. All right, so how does solar work? So the sun basically emits photons, and then on your solar panel, there's basically a negative charge electron. And those photons hit that negative charge electron and bounce it to the positive charge electron. And in between that transfer is a silicone wafer, and that silicone actually captures that energy during that transition. And the solar panels, through that process, are producing what's called DC electricity, or direct current. So then the next component that the solar goes through is called an inverter, and it's just as critical as the panels themselves. So, if you think of DC electricity, a cell phone, laptop, pretty much anything with a battery is going to be running off of DC power. Well, your home and the U.S. grid all runs off of AC. So the inverter is what makes that transition to where the DC energy from the panels is able to be used at your home with AC. And then, so you produce that power, you transfer it to AC to use at your house. Then what happens if, on a sunny day like today, and we'll look at this here in just a moment, where you're not using a lot of power, where does that energy go? Well, you'll actually send that back to the grid, and the utility company will actually track that and give you a credit for that surplus of energy. And that's called net metering. And basically the way it works in Ameren, Missouri, is you send excess power back to the grid. As long as you use that power within the same billing period, they're going to pay you back at its full value. And, the benefit is, like today, Mike's producing a ton of extra power. Tonight when the sun goes down, his kids are on the electronics, the AC kicks on, he'll be pulling those credits back, and that's what they call net metering. And then the final step is system monitoring. So I'm going to pull in Mike's real-time live production here. So this is through his inverter. All the inverters that we sell include monitoring as part of the installation. And you can see here this is changing every few seconds. So what this number here indicates is what right now, as we're sitting here talking, what his real production is, and then how much power his home is consuming. So very little power right now. And then how much power he's sending back to Ameren in real time. And then I'll scroll down here. This is what the real-time monitoring looks like for the day. So you can see it starts here at midnight. So the sun is obviously down in the middle of the night. Then about roughly 6 a.m., sun starts coming up. So so the red is power being pulled from the grid. Blue is power that the solar generated that was immediately consumed at the house. But then you can see here, roughly 8 a.m., sun's rising and rising, getting a lot more sunlight. What's happened is his system has actually started overproducing. So the power that he's generated, some of it, which is down here in blue, has been consumed, and then the excess is what's here in green. And if we were on the phone here for 3 hours, you would see that this will peak roughly about now at noon, and then this will basically start to come down as the sun, shifts to the west and starts to set. One more cool thing I'd like to point out is we've also, with the type of inverter Mike has, you do get panel level monitoring. So you can look at Mike's video, the array that's behind him on the top of his front of his house, that's these panels right here. And you can see what their real-time production is. And then shortly he's going to swing around and show you his garage array. That's what these panels over here are. So these are the south-facing panels. These are the southwest facing panels. So the monitoring is very important. Not only does it tell us how your system's working, but if there is an issue, it's also a way that alerts us that if, a panel may have a failure or part of his inverter system may have a failure, that's how we know to come out and look at it. So very cool stuff. Mike will tell you he loves staring at it all day and analyzing it. So the next screen here, is kind of a breakdown. So we just looked at Mike's daily production. What we're looking at here is an example of annual production. So these are, of course, months of the year. And then, again, anything in blue is what you're pulling from the grid. And then anything in orange is solar production. So you can see here, there's, in this example, some months where you're overproducing power with, those excess credits. All right, and then what are the environmental impacts? So I know, for a lot of people, this is very important, including myself and Mike. So his system size, it's a 7.2 kW, so very close to this example. Annually, every year, it's the equivalent of driving 14,850 less miles by the average passenger vehicle, 774,000 number of smartphones charged, 6,640 pounds of coal burned, or the equivalent of planting 100 tree seedlings that have grown for 10 years. And that's all happening on his roof in Fenton, Missouri. So very, very impactful for what, a solar system can do for the environment. All right, so some of the options, of course, what we're looking at today with Mike's house is a roof mount. So, of course, the ideal angle for solar is south. We can absolutely mount on east and west, which, Mike, the front of your house that you're seeing right now, his is west, a little bit southwest. South, of course, is ideal. When you go east-west, you still get about 80% of the productivity as you do it south. And, of course, we want to have minimal shading from trees or other buildings. And then we can install on a shingle, so asphalt shingle, metal roof, both standing seam and corrugated, or flat TPO roofs, which is probably what you see on flat roofs in like South St. Louis. And then if your roof age, that's one of the first questions we'll ask if you're inquiring. We would like that to be at least under 15 years old, because what we don't want to do is install solar, and then 3 years later, you have to replace your roof. We have to come out and take all that equipment off and then reinstall it. There's a cost associated with that if you're paying out of pocket. If it's for hail damage, the 2 cases that I've come across with clients, if it is due to hail damage and they're replacing the roof, they will also include that service for us to come out and remove and replace your panel system. And then the other option we install is called a ground mount. Just like it sounds, we're essentially putting piles, driving piles into the ground. So the optimal scenario for that is you need a large amount of space, typically outside of cities and suburbs. Although I did have a client in Chesterfield last week consider putting solar panels in his backyard. But the benefit to that is we can dial in the solar panels or the whole system to the exact parameters we want. So the most optimal solar system here in the Midwest is 180 degrees south facing at a 30-degree tilt. And with ground mounts, we can clock that in exactly. So you're getting essentially maximum productivity. So those are the 2 types of installations we can do. And then to dive into the solar panels, so the 2 brands we primarily sell, the first one is REC. I would say, I don't know the exact stat, roughly 90% of our systems are installed with REC brand panels. They are a Norwegian company that manufactures in Singapore. The reasons we like them a lot is they've been around for 20 years, which in solar terms is light years basically. They have very low debt, so they're a very financially sound company, which means that they have the ability to be sustainable and remain in business and support their product into the future. They also have the lowest number of claim warranties out of all the major manufacturers. And then the other brand we sell, LG, which I'm sure everybody recognizes that brand. It's the same company that makes, household appliances, refrigerators, microwaves. That's actually what Mike has on his home. Also an extremely reliable product. So both of them include REC and LG, include a 25-year warranty. LG is headquartered in South Korea and manufactured there as well. And again, you get 25 years on a electrical production, and then also 25 years on workmanship. So, of course, electrical production would be generating electricity from the sun. Workmanship would be more the aesthetics of the panel. So if like a corner or the frame were to crack, that type of thing, with both of the panels we primarily install, you're covered for 25 years on both those products. And then the inverters. So here's that critical piece again that flips it from DC to AC. There's three types that we offer. So the first one, and these are kind of in order in technology level as well as price level. So the lowest cost, simplest inverter we sell is called a string inverter. And the way that works is we just run DC off of your roof down to this one single piece of equipment. And that's where that conversion takes place. It comes standard with a 10-year warranty for the brand we sell. It's called SMA. It's a German company that manufactures in the U.S. and China, I believe. Standard warranty for 10 years. There is an option to extend that to 15 and 20 years. And I'll actually jump over to the far right as kind of the opposite type of technology that's available, and that's called a microinverter. And the manufacturer of that product is called Enphase. And it differs from a string inverter, like the one on the left, in that instead of having one single piece of equipment in your basement that transfers that electricity from DC to AC, what we do here is we install one of these microinverters underneath each solar panel. And then that transition takes place right there at the panel level. The benefit to that is, so Mike's home has a little bit of shade from his neighbor's tree. If say early in the morning, a few of those panels are shaded, if he had this type of inverter, the production of his entire system would be brought down to produce no more than what those two shaded panels are producing. So they kind of become the weakest link. When you have this type of technology at each panel, what that allows is the panels operate independently. So they're always talking to each other, but as far as their output, the other panels don't care if two of them are shaded. They're going to still put out their maximum amount of power that they're capable of at that given moment. And then the third option, which is what Mike has, is it's considered a hybrid system. It's a brand called SolarEdge. And it's similar to this type of inverter, the string inverter, in that it still is all transferred from DC to AC at one location. And Mike will show you this piece of equipment in his basement. It's similar to a microinverter in that underneath each one of Mike's panels, he has what they call a DC optimizer or a power optimizer. And it basically gives you the same technology benefits as a microinverter, but not at quite the same cost. And so the inverter that Mike has, the piece of equipment, the actual inverter itself in his basement, comes standard with a 12-year warranty. It's typically no more than $700 or $800 to get that extended out to 20 years. So the majority of our systems do have that extended warranty. And then the power optimizer, which is the portion that sits underneath each solar panel, that comes with a 25-year warranty. So the part that's outside in the elements, that's covered for 25 years. And the same is actually for the microinverters as well. So there is a cost increase as you go from each type. So lowest cost, middle, and highest, but the technology does get better with each and the warranties as well. All right, and then battery options. So, a lot of people are curious as to, if the grid goes down and I've got solar, can I keep producing solar, or can I keep using that electricity? Unfortunately, just a standard solar install, the answer is no. And the reason is electric code requires that if the grid goes down, your solar shuts off. And they do that because they don't want to be out on the line working and under the assumption the power's off, and then your solar system feeds power back to it and shocks somebody. However, the solution to that is to add storage or batteries to your system to use whenever the grid is down. Not too long ago, we were certified as the first Tesla Powerwall installer for Eastern Missouri and Illinois. We do offer some different types of batteries as well. So the first one listed here, LG Chem, that works in conjunction very well with Solar Edge. So they're designed to work and communicate together. That's a DC coupled battery, so meaning that solar comes off your roof as DC, charges this battery or runs through this battery, then goes to your inverter, then goes to your house or your electric panel. Enphase, the microinverter manufacturer, they also offer a battery system that's relatively new. And then in the third one, Tesla, that's the most versatile one. So you can use that with any type of inverter, whether it be that basic string inverter or the more advanced power optimizers or microinverters. And basically you get your most bang for your buck with the Powerwall. It's got the highest rating for the lowest cost. And Tesla is really good with their technology and support. So we consult them on any install. And they basically give their engineering approval for any installation that we do with their Powerwalls. All right, and then the incentives that are available. So for this calendar year in 2020, there's a federal tax credit that's valued at 26% of your system cost. So whatever it costs to install, basically you'll get 26% of that back from the IRS when you file your taxes next year. We always like to stress there is a step down rate. So if you wait to install next year, that value does drop down to 22%. And then as it stands right now, by the year 2022, there is no more federal tax incentive for residential solar. I think there's still a 10% one for commercial. We always like to stress you need the tax appetite to take that credit. So it's pretty rare, but I have had a few clients where they're retired, don't have a lot of income, they don't pay a lot of taxes, they weren't eligible for that tax credit. So we always advise, it never hurts to check with your tax professional to make sure that you are eligible for that. And then say we have to, reinforce your roof with some structural, or if you want to add batteries to your system, anything like that that's part of that system cost, or if we have to upgrade your electric panel, that's fairly common to bring it up to code. We roll that into the cost of the system, and the IRS views that as mandatory to get the system up and running, so you are eligible for that 26, or for this year, that 26% tax credit even for those services. And then as to qualify for that tax credit, you do have to be the homeowner. And then over here is just a quick example. So someone making $75,000 on their income, they would have $25,000 in deductions, hypothetically. So then their amount of taxable income is $50,000. And if you figure they're taxed at a 20% rate, that's a $10,000 liability that they owe to the IRS each year. If you spend $20,000 on solar, $5,200 of that is given back by the tax credit. So instead of owing the IRS $10,000 that year, you're only going to owe them $4,800 for that year. So I've had clients as well where that's really their main benefit or their main incentive. It's not really environmental, it's not financial, it's for their tax purposes. So definitely a very good investment. If we got folks joining us from Illinois, they have a big incentive over there that they call Solar Renewable Energy Credit, or as we call it, SRECs. Feel free to read through all the information. Just to summarize it, what they do is they base their incentives on the system's productivity. So they basically write you a big check up front for your incentive, and then they're actually going to monitor your system for the next 15 years to make sure that it is actually producing what is estimated. So it's a lot more detailed in Illinois as far as tracking it, but the value of the incentive is also very good, really one of the best in the countries. And then for the folks here in Missouri, this is relatively new. They just passed this in 2018. They call it the Grid Modernization Act. And basically, they've got a lot of money set aside, and it's valued at 25 cents per watt of energy. So like in Mike's case, he's got a 7,200 watt system. You times that times a quarter, that's what he gets back, from Ameren. The max you can install in Missouri for residential is a 25 kW, and if you're a commercial client, it's 150 kW. And we basically handle all the paperwork, not just for the rebate, but for the permitting, everything. We do that internally. And then the final step to your installation is them coming out and putting in a bidirectional. Mike's going to show you his in a moment here. And that's basically when Ameren does that, that's when they know to mail out your check. And they're actually very consistent about it. And it does come very quickly, roughly about 4 to 6 weeks after your meter's installed. And then, for example, so this is very similar to Mike's, 70 kW system. His value of that rebate would be $1,750. All right, and then financing options. We work with an organization called the Clean Energy Credit Union. And what they do is they take your system cost, split it into two loans. The first one, it's valued at 26% of your system cost, which is identical to that federal tax credit you're getting back. And basically, you don't have to make any payments or there's no interest accruing during that time. And then what you do is you get your federal tax credit, pay off that loan in full within an 12 to 18 month period, however long, depending on what time you install your system. Then the benefit is you're only financing 74% instead of the full 100. They're floating you that money until it becomes available to you. And then the other 74% goes into a 2.99% loan for 12 years. And then just recently they did add a 15-year option where the interest rate's at 3.99. But if you're looking for that lowest monthly payment, they do have that option as well. All right, I'm going to dig into some of the details of Mike's array. So again, he's got LG panels. They're 360 watts per panel, and he's got 20 of them. He's got a SolarEdge 6000 or SE 6000 watt inverter. And then the impact of a system, it's going to produce 193,940 kilowatt hours of energy over the 25-year life of the warranted system. We'll save 137 metric tons of CO2. It's the equivalent of CO2 sequestered by 179 acres of U.S. forests in 1 year. And of course, everybody knows, wants to know when I tell people in solar, I work in solar, what's it cost? So in Mike's case, the system cost $27,216. And then his Ameren rebate valued at $1,800. And then the federal tax credit, $7,076. So net out of pocket, $18,340. And then over the life of the system, he's going to reach a point where the money he spent out of pocket has been recouped by reducing his Ameren bill. And he's going to talk about how much that's dropped. But yeah, over the 25-year life of the system, it's estimated to save him $32,181. All right, Mike, and I am going to stop sharing my screen here, Mike, and if you'd like to go ahead and take over the tour of your solar array.
Mike, you're muted.
Sorry. Is that better?
Yep.
Okay.
We got you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining. My name is Mike Farwig. I'm standing in front of my home here in Fenton, Missouri. You can see 2/3 of my array behind me. A little bit about myself. I'm an electrical engineer. I deal in power, industrial facilities. And I went with solar because I've always kind of wanted it since it became mainstream. Being an electrical engineer, it's always interested me and make my living, a lot of it in the energy industry, which includes fossil fuels. So I thought if I could do my part to help offset some of that, I could. So I could say it's maybe more altruistic than maybe environmental, but I also like saving money because I'm a cheapskate. So I have been really happy with this system. I check, like Matt said, I check the production almost daily. I think I've generated now over 7 megawatt hours since I turned it on July 5th of last year. It's basically maintenance free. I haven't had to do anything with it. I want to touch on a few things, Matt, that you talked about in your presentation. I have 2 different arrays, one behind me and then the one on my south-facing garage roof, which I guess would be considered individual strings. So the beauty of the inverter, microinverter system, or the power optimizer system, which I have, the SolarEdge system, it allows for individual panel shading and a separate facing arrays to all work, in my case, on the same inverter without whole string degradation like a single string SMA inverter limits you to. So that's one thing I wanted to touch on, is that I think, Matthew, the word we were probably looking for with those microinverters and power optimizers is you have panel level maximum power point tracking, as opposed to the entire inverter trying to handle that and suffering from panel shading or different facing arrays or different size arrays like I have. It allows individual panel power maximum power, each panel to make its maximum power at any given time. So
Great.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Riley.
Uh, if you don't mind, could you take your phone and show us the south side array?
I will do that, yes.
Awesome,
Here we
thank
go.
you.
I'm gonna try to not shake my phone too much. But as you can see, I'm gonna walk past two cars. Neither one of them are hybrids. This is my work truck. So I try to do what I can because I can't do it all. All righty, so I'm gonna try to switch my screen over here. As I get back here. Okay, so now you're looking at my south-facing array. It's smaller, it's 7 panels. Its alignment or orientation is preferred, but as you can see, I didn't really have the real estate. You're looking at what may look like an unfinished project. That's actually for future, and you can see there's some shading that was going on with my chimney. And if I pan over here slowly, I'll show you this massive maple tree that's providing shade for me right now. There's concern that that would also affect some of my south arrays. So, and I wanted the capacity to add 3 more panels if it came to think I needed it or I wanted it, just because that was my choice. But it does give you a good opportunity to kind of see the mounting array. This is called an Iron Ridge, and it has these, they call them feet. You can't really get much closer, but they mount underneath the asphalt shingles. I have a standard home built in 1993 with 2x6 and 2x4 construction and an architectural asphalt shingle roof. And these feet slide up underneath the shingles, and then StraightUp uses high performance sealant, roofing sealant, to seal them to the roof, and then they're anchored into the roof trusses with lag bolts, I'm told. And then up and to the right there in the center of my screen now, that's the actual junction box where both the DC strings join together and 2 circuits head down to my inverter in the basement. So,
Great. Can you show us your meter?
yes, head there. So this is my power meter. Ameren came out and replaced it. It was a digital meter before, it's a digital meter now. No, I take that, yeah. Actually, I had an analog meter. They came out and replaced it with a digital meter, and then 2 months later, they came out and replaced it with my net meter. So that's utilities for you, I guess. So you can see that the signage that Solar Edge puts up, that Ameren and county, St. Louis County requires, that there's an alternate generation source, and then there's a parallel generation present, lockable solar AC disconnect, and then they even give you the actual physical location in plan view of where that solar disconnect is. I'll walk over there in a second. Show it to you. Here's my meter. Try to get it where you can see it. Right, maybe there, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Looks good. Yeah.
Yeah. So this top arrow here, that's my energy flow or power flow. So right now I'm producing. I'm exporting power back to the grid. And I haven't quite figured out exactly all what these codes are. I did email Ameren, and they sent me a cheat sheet, but my cheat sheet didn't quite match up all of these numbers that are rolling by, and I just haven't had the time to figure them all out. But I do know that it tells me I get a bill every billing cycle. It's in the middle of the month, and it tells me what I've consumed from them, imported, and what I've exported to them. I just looked at my last bill from May 17th to June, I'm sorry, from April 15th or 16th to May 15th or 16th or 17th. And this was my best production yet. I overproduced 245 kilowatt hours, which is amazing. And probably more than I really wanted to, but 2 months prior to that I've overproduced, but when it gets hotter and these panels get hotter, their production goes down slightly just because of the way solar panels work. That my production will go down slightly, and of course my consumption will go up. I have a I have a 15 SEER air conditioner I put in about 8 years ago with a variable speed DC blower fan. So it's not your top of the line inverter system you can get now, but it still does a pretty good job. I consume about 20 kilowatt hours a day without air conditioning, and about 45 to 49 when I am. Over here, I apologize. I said I would move this ladder, but I didn't. So it's going to be kind of a I'll say Hoosiers as well, St. Louis. Here you can see the AC disconnect. This allows Ameren to actually turn off the output of my inverter as it goes into my electric panel. So that's a safety thing. The SolarEdge inverter has the technology in it. There's a particular name of it, smart, safe something. Anyway, it follows, not follows, looks at the grid, and when it sees it's dead, it turns off. So it, like Matt said, you can't backfeed into the grid. I think it's called islanding mode. But I'm gonna, Matt, why don't you take my screen over? I'm gonna traipse through my house, head to my basement, and I'll see you guys in a second. Keep babbling, I guess, or you can keep looking at my face.
Well, actually, Mike, what I was going to do is show the folks a couple documents here. So the first one is part of our engineering process. So basically, when you choose to move forward with StraightUp Solar, within a few weeks, we have a technician come out, hop on your roof, and take extremely detailed measurements. You know, the size of your roof, as well as what we call obstructions, so vent pipes, chimneys, anything that's going to get in the way of the solar. And they submit that data to our engineers, and we actually have 3 of them in-house, an electrical and 2 design engineers, very, very skilled at what they do. And they developed what they call the detailed layout. So this is what they'll submit in Mike's case, or anybody that lives in St. Louis County, to the county to say, hey, this is what we're going to do. You know, and it's how many attachment points they're going to be, the weight, you know, all those details that they require, what Mike's truss or roof layout looks like. And then in some cases, we'll even get a stamped structural. Some municipalities require that as well. So they develop that, they show them how it's going to be attached. And then the other document that Mike, as an electrical engineer, really likes is called the electrical one line. So basically, this is the electrical layout of how a system works. So here's his 1 array, here's a south 7-panel array, this 13-panel array. Those come to a junction box, like you said. There's the one where they both combine together. That's up on his garage. Run down to his inverter, and then back outside to that AC disconnect he was just showing us with the placards, and then to his electric panel, which is what he's going to be showing us here shortly. So your system cost is all of these things are included. You know, so some people may get a little sticker shock at first at what solar costs, but you can see there's a lot that goes into it, and we have to have very skilled people on staff to develop these type of documents. So yeah, that's part of the process. You know, that we need for permitting, and then of course, St. Louis County is very thorough on their inspections as well. So not only do we submit that information, but then we actually have to install it to those exact specs. And if we don't, you know, the inspectors will call us out on it. But it's to the benefit to the client is, you know, it's safe. You know, essentially what we're doing is putting a power plant on your roof that has to last 25 years and has the ability to cause fires and electrocute people. So it's, you know, very, very important that it's part of our clear values, excellence in all we do. That's kind of what we mean by that is we want to be thorough, do it up to code, do it up to safety, and make sure it will last. So, Mike, have you made it downstairs to your basement yet?
I am. I should be set up. I don't, can't see my own screen, but let me turn my camera back on here.
There we go.
Perfect.
There you go.
All right. So this is my basement, whoop-de-doo. This is my 200 amp electric panel, main lug only. My actual circuit breaker is behind my meter in my garage. And then this is my SolarEdge HD Wave inverter. It sits here, it's silent. There's some heat sinks on the back, but they're not even warm. There's a couple of lights. I'm not sure if you can see them or not. It indicates that the thing is on, and that if the production is above 33%, it turns another LED on. I don't remember the details, unfortunately. There's also a red light on it that if there's an error or something, it will flash it as well. This here, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, this conduit over here is the greenfield with this marking on it. That's the 2 DC strings that come from the 2 arrays on my roof, the west and south ones. they hit a junction box in here and they tie together. They go up into the inverter, they're converted, and then they come back out of this other green field here, out to that disconnect I just left, and they come back in to another piece of green field into my panel board and are mounted at this 40 amp breaker here in my panel. So as my house consumes power, it either takes it from the grid through this wire or from the inverter through this breaker here. And that basically net meters. Matt mentioned credits. I think Ameren simply just calls them kilowatt hours. That's what it basically boils down to. Like I said, it's maintenance free. In my case, I do have consumption metering on it. So it has an Ethernet connection to my Ethernet mesh, which you can see some of the cables right here. And it also has a wire that goes into a meter that's in my panel. So, I think that's about it. It's a 7.2 kW array. I'm not sure if Matt's slide showed that exactly, and a 6 kW AC array. So there's slightly oversizing. Is that the right word, Matt? Oversizing of the DC array versus the AC output.
Correct.
I've been happy with it. I love it. Like I said, StraightUp Solar's been, they were professionals to work with. They worked with St. Louis County. They knew exactly what they needed and wanted to see or what to expect. They filed my Ameren rebate, and I got, like Matt said, I had it within 2 weeks. Anyway, that's it in a nutshell. It's a standard house in a standard neighborhood, and nothing crazy, except it's now making energy, and I don't really have to do much else for it, except enjoy the benefits. That's all I have, unless anybody has any questions for me or Matthew or Riley or any.
Yeah, Mike, I did want to, can you talk about, and what I'm going to do is present my screen again so everybody can see it. I'm going to pull up your electric bills, and if you can talk about, how much of the savings you've got. Let me get those pulled in here real quick.
Yeah, hi, email. Yeah. I had budget billing. Maybe a lot of St. Louisans do. Ameren tallies up my net metering every month on every billing cycle. So I don't have to worry about consuming it right away or trying to store it in batteries. If I overproduce it, I just buy it back from net meter back from Ameren. And if I overproduce over what I've consumed internally, then Ameren actually buys that energy back from me. Now, Ameren doesn't do it like some utilities I know. I have a coworker in Arizona. They buy it back at the retail rate of what they buy it from. Ameren buys it back at the wholesale rate, so sorry, something popped over my screen. So I don't get as much back as had if I used it myself or had to buy it from them, but that's just the way it is. But that doesn't upset me. If I'm overproducing, I'm happy. But anyway, you can see my budget bill there is $102 a month. That's what I've had for the last year. They have some algorithm that figures out how much my electric bill, how much my consumption would be over the year based on past history. And then they calculate, okay, you're going to pay this much every month, regardless of how much energy you use. And then it trues up every May. In fact, it just trued up. If this is my last bill, it may say in my budget billing, you can see it there right in the middle of the screen. Your budget bill amount was reviewed this month and will change to $10 effective your next bill. So when I got my solar array installed and generating, I was offsetting most of my energy. Then I started overproducing here in these cooler spring months and sunny spring months. Now still paying $102 a month. So now I had this dollar credit, and then they've reviewed what I'm producing and consuming versus now they've changed my budget bill to $10 a month. So that was pretty exciting when I got that text message. Because my wife, as a spouse, she was like, well, why are we still paying $102 a month? I thought our electric bill was supposed to go down. She didn't quite say it like that, but it will. So I said, it's coming. I had to reach out to Ameren because Ameren's dashboard is not very technically minded. So it didn't tell me when it was going to reevaluate. So I actually had to chat with them. They told me, to reevaluate in May. So. But this is my stellar month. This was my last, or not month, my last billing cycle. I don't know, Matt, if you can show the rest of it, or you want to show the rest of it, where it You can actually see the,
Sure.
yeah, there. I have, so if you look at my meter number, I have 2 meter numbers that are the same, but then one of them is considered my imported power, the top line, and then the bottom line is my exported power. And in this case, my net for the month, I'm sorry, billing cycle, was greater than what I consumed. So you can see in the next section down there, my rate 1M residential electric service, my net metering purchase credit of negative 245 kilowatt hours. So that means I used more than I made, I made more than I used over the period. So they paid me $7.11 back off my bill. So my bill that month was, this past month was actually $2.43. So that's pretty exciting stuff for me. Like I said, I like to save money. Who doesn't? Frugal is the word I like to call myself. Cheapskate is what other people call me. Deep pockets, I think my dad used to call me. Anyway.
Great. Yeah, Matt, could you show us the monitoring portal?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, can everybody see that?
Yep.
Yeah, and yeah, this is the same one we'd actually looked at earlier. Let me refresh it here. So a few things to point out here. Mike's got, and we shoot for this on every system, a hard wire. So meaning we ran it from his Ethernet, or excuse me, from his router to his inverter. That gives us real-time data. So before we were looking, this number should jump here in a few seconds. By having it hardwired in, it is real time, maybe a 15-second delay. If you're in a rural area or you have spotty internet service, we do have the option of a cell card, but that has about a 4-hour delay. But yeah, we shoot for real-time production, and you can kind of see, and I'm glad we came back to this. So we were talking right around noontime, and that was its peak. So that's when the sun's, the highest point of the day. And then now it's starting to drift off into the Western hemisphere, and you'll see that production, start to drop. And with a clear sunny day, this is what we call the bell curve, where there's no dips, there's no clouds. That system is producing at its maximum capability for the day. And then you'll see roughly around whenever it gets dark now, 7, 8 o'clock. That curve will land here, and then the blue and green will basically go away, and then he'll start drawing on the grid again. But he'll actually pull those credits, all these credits he's built up today, which is 11.74 kilowatt hours. He'll start pulling from those tonight when the sun's down and his AC is running. And that's just, this is all today's data. You can look at it on a weekly basis. So we've had some rainy days here. So you can see this would have been 28 Wednesday or Thursday, not nearly as much sun. So his productivity was down, of course, because of the sunlight. And then you can look at it on a monthly basis, and then as well as an annual basis. So you can see month by month. So of course we get less sunlight in the winter months. As we see more sunlight, it starts to climb. And then as his AC kicks on, his consumption starts to climb. So it's a really good balance. Heat, he demands you to turn on the AC. The solar produces more as well. So very good correlation there. And then on top of it, again, we can look at his layout. So there's that, I think you said maple tree that's shading him. So that's catching that guy there. But these other panels here don't care. If we had that traditional string inverter, these guys would not be able to work or generate any more electricity than what this guy can. But since they have that panel level technology, they're talking, they're communicating 1,000 times a second, but they're still going to say, hey, I'm going to work as hard as I can and output as much power as I can. And then on top of that, we can run reports to see, how he's doing. He hasn't had it quite installed a year yet, but if you want to run, month over month, how this May did versus last May, et cetera, site status. So if he's ever had an error, that brings up another good point is say one of those optimizers underneath his panel or the panel itself failed, it's going to kick an email to Mike and to our service manager, Chuck, to say, hey, the Farwig array, has a panel or an optimizer that hasn't produced in 3 days. And that's how we know to come out and look at it. And by having that panel level technology, we know right where to look. Not to completely dog on string arrays, or inverters. There's very good applications for them, but we wouldn't know that. We would just know that production's down, wouldn't necessarily know there was a problem with the panel, and we'd have to go by each panel and look at it individually, where this alerts us and tells us right where to go look. So very cool. And all the inverter brands we sell have monitoring portal. The SMA, the string inverter, is just not going to break it down to a panel level, but it'll still give you all this overall data. I do like to mention, out of the box, SolarEdge only includes production data. So Mike had us install this consumption monitor as well. So for most of our clients up until recently, the only thing that you would see is this green info, and that's the system productivity. We have no idea how much his house is using, and we have no idea how much his house is producing solar energy and using it at the same time. We've got a big push to include this consumption monitoring. It's only about a $300 or $400 add-on, but it gives you the full scope of what's going on. So very beneficial. And the reason we've got a big push for it, I've got a lot of clients that say, well, I get my Ameren bill. It shows me what I bought from them, what I sent to them, but I have no idea how much I used. You know, I mean, you can do the math, but so this consumption monitoring is a very cool option, and, you know, for the cost, highly recommended. So, yeah, Riley, I wasn't sure, did we get any questions throughout the presentation? I lost the chat box.
We haven't had any questions dropped in the chat. If anyone does have a question at this time, you can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask. Otherwise, Matt, if you don't mind, could you go back to the presentation slides and show on the final slide is your contact information? I want to be sure that everyone here in this presentation will have a way that they can reach StraightUp Solar and reach Matt in particular if you have any questions going forward.
Matt, I do have one question.
Mm-hmm.
Are the produced power that's produced monthly, is that accumulated continuously or just month to month?
Very good question. So Ameren, Missouri, it's month to month. So what they do, like in Mike's case, at the end of last month or last billing cycle, they cut it off and they say, okay, where's Mike at? In his case, he had produced more power at a month on an overall month basis than what he consumed at his house. So they're going to credit, which we were just looking at, credit his next month's bill for that excess power. It is important to note in Ameren, Missouri, they're paying him about this time of the year, I think it's 2.9 cents a kilowatt hour on those excess credits. During the summer, it bumps up to 3.5. But the reason I bring that up is they're charging them roughly 9 to 11 cents a kilowatt hour. So the reason I bring that up is we always want to size your system to where you're not substantially overproducing every month, because you're not getting the full value of that investment. You've bought more solar than what you're using by a substantial amount. You're not getting the full credit back. So in Missouri, we have to be very diligent about making sure that we size it to what you're going to be using. Illinois, yeah. In Illinois, it's a little different. They actually give you a full year. So if Mike overproduces this month throughout the whole summer, they'll just keep stacking those credits. And then once a year, they cut you off, opposed to every month. So, you know, a little different depending on where the folks are at. If you're in Illinois, it's a little different setup. But yeah, Ameren, Missouri, it's month to month.
I see. Okay, Matt, that's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Riley said, please.
The ugly side of that is there's some, I guess, smaller utilities that are not very conducive to solar, that you have to use it or lose it within a day or something staggeringly unfriendly to consumer. But month to month I'm happy with. And like I said, mine is they buy it back at the wholesale rate. I know like in Arizona, Phoenix area, they buy it back at the retail rate. But you also pay 30 cents a kilowatt hour in peak time too. So I don't have I don't have time of day metering on this on my account, so that doesn't really affect me.
Yeah, and what Mike means by time of day is like in Arizona, California, when demand is up during the day because businesses are open, ACs are running, it's really hot, they'll actually charge more for a period of time in the day. Typically, it's like 10 to 2 or 10 to 4. Missouri does not do that, nor does Illinois. We in the industry or at our company are under the assumption that's probably coming, because Mike's meter or any new digital meter does track that. They don't charge you for it. And like Mike said, you do have the option as an Ameren customer, if you don't have solar, of doing that, where if you essentially promise to use less energy during those peak times, they'll give you a discounted rate. But if you exceed it, then they'll charge you more. So it's kind of a gamble. But yeah, just something to be aware of is that, that may be coming here in Missouri and Illinois. But yeah, and sorry, go ahead, Mike.
One more thing I wanted to mention on my consumption on that metering, where you could see that red area where it was basically without my AC running. It's around a constant, my highest, I like to say it idles around 800 watts continuously. So all the parasitic loads you may have heard in my house draw about 800 watts. You can see at about 2 a.m. that big spike up to 2 kW. That's when my younger son finally showered and blew dry his hair in our bathroom, woke us up, and that was a hairdryer kicking on. And then you can see, around 10, 11, my air conditioner started cycling on and off as the day started to get hotter. That's when it peaks up to about 4 kW. What's it at, 3? Yeah, a little under 3.
Yeah.
The resolution on that meter is, unfortunately, I think every minute or so sampling, so it's not perfect. It's not instantaneous. It's a sampling at a certain time. But anyway, I just want to kind of talk about. So now with that, me knowing my consumption, I am now on the task to find out just where those loads are in my house. Why am I, the computer to my right here, which you can't see, I had a kilowatt hour meter on this. If you got my video up, I used to have a kilowatt hour right here. It draws 121 watts day in and day out, 24 hours, 7 days a week. So that's, 1.2, 1.12 kilowatt hours. Or yeah, it was like I don't know. It was enough to say, well, maybe I should do something about it, but I haven't. I've got a hepatarium up in my kids' room for keep a snake warm, so it's got a light that turns on and a heater. So that does, that's another load. I've got a lot of electronic, I shouldn't say this on the internet, but I've got, everyone's got TVs and stuff like that, and they all got their parasitic loads. Anyway, I'm rambling.
Well, thanks, Mike. Are there any other questions from the crowd? You can go ahead and unmute your microphone.
Do you deal with Quiver River in western St. Charles County?
Excuse me. Yes, sir. I've personally done one project there. They do not have a rebate for solar. So, we've talked about that Ameren rebate being a different utility. They don't offer that. A benefit there, though, is their net metering is actually really good. They do the annual net metering. So we were talking earlier how with Ameren Missouri, they cut it off every month. There, they do give you the benefit of keeping those credits for a year. Another reason why solar is a good investment in that area is you guys pay a lot for electricity. So by installing solar, you're lowering that cost of per kilowatt hour of electricity. But yeah, I personally worked with them once, and yeah, I think as a company we've done, a handful of projects.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any more questions? All right, Matt, could you pull up that slide one more time with your contact info?
Absolutely.
Before we conclude, I just want to give everyone a chance to write down Matt's name, Matt's email address, and his phone number. You can contact Matt if you have any questions going forward after the presentation. You can also visit our website, straightupsolar.com. And for everyone who has attended the meeting or RSVP'd, I will send you a recording of this presentation so you have the information to review later. And I'll also share it with everyone on the Facebook event. All right, and it looks like we have no more questions, so I want to thank you all for joining us today. And Mike, thank you for presenting and letting us see your beautiful array.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
All right.
Goodbye.
Thanks all.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.